again. Get 'em big and please again. I need you. Oh, I need you. Walking down this desert roads, water for my thirsty soul. I need you. Oh, I need you. Your forgiveness is like sweet, sweet honey on my lips, like the sound of a symphony to my ears, like holy water on my skin.
Well, good evening, and so glad you could join us for C3 tonight. We are blessed tonight to have a really special guest, but before I introduce our special guest, I just want to share a couple of things. Don't forget, we have our outdoor worship that you can come to and be in person for on Saturday nights at 6 o'clock in the south parking lot. That's the parking lot right above Giant Eagle, on the backside of the church from Highland Road. So we would love to have you come and join us. There will be a spot where you could bring your lawn chair and sit down, or you can stay in your car and listen to the service on the radio. If you're feeling a little bit more uncomfortable and still want to be a little bit more secluded, we practice social distancing, we wear masks, we keep everybody safe, but at least we're able to be back together in person and see each other as we worship together. And as always, our online worship will continue on Sunday mornings with the contemporary service at 9 and the traditional service at 11. So you can tune in for those as well. We have communion that you can come and receive in the sanctuary in person on Wednesday nights at 6 o'clock. And as always, our building is open during the week, so you can come and pray in the Peeler Chapel between 9 in the morning and 7 at night, Monday through Friday. And there's a variety of small groups and Bible studies going on throughout the week. And as always, we want to encourage you to take a look at our website. That's where you can find the latest information, the most up-to-date information of everything that's going on in the life of the church. Well, as you know, if you join us on a regular basis for C3, on Wednesdays we try to do some interviews, whether it be with staff people or people that could maybe provide something as we're dealing with a pandemic and help us through that, or with some of our ministry partners. And we are blessed tonight to be able to interview one of our ministry partners who's actually right out of this church. And I'd like to right now welcome Pastor Keith Caulfield, who is going to be joining us tonight. So how you doing, Keith?
I'm good, brother. Good. Thank you for inviting me to do this.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. It's always good to see you. Before we get started talking about the different ministries that you're engaged with and things that are going on, since you're from this church and a lot of people know you and care about you and pray for you and support you, can you give us kind of an update on how you and your family are doing, so people can hear about what's going on in the Caulfield family life, you know?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. So I have become officially Methodist. We moved into our first parsonage. We've been in there for about a month so far, and although we are only 2 blocks from our former house, it feels a world away. We have a huge yard, even have 8 baby turkeys that we've grown accustomed to, and so we are well. Jessa, who many of you know have been praying for, was born with critical congenital heart defect. She is 2.5 now, and she is kicking butt and taking names. We just had an echocardiogram, and she is where she needs to be. So thank you and keep praying. Malia is starting 2nd grade, and Monica, my wife, is still sane. So we're good. Thank you for asking.
That's awesome. So before I get to the questions, I just want to encourage all of you that are watching. If you're watching already on Facebook, you're welcome to send questions our way. Pastor Keith will be glad to answer any of those questions that you send his way. If you're watching on YouTube or the website and want to send a question in, you're going to have to go to Facebook to do it, but we welcome you to do that as well. But I have a few that I want to get started with, and everybody kind of knows this. With COVID coming, ministry kind of has changed. In how we do it. It hasn't stopped the need to have it, but we all kind of do it a little bit differently. So with COVID happening for what you all are doing with 8th Avenue Place, how does that look for you now in what you're doing with 8th Avenue Place in Homestead?
Yeah, so great question. We work with a lot of people who are living with mental illness and in recovery for, or need to be in recovery for addiction and alcoholism. And for all of us, human community is crucial. But for many people who base their sanity and recovery on it, it has been especially difficult. So since the pandemic hit, we have been continuing to we have a Monday night 12-step spirituality meeting and a Thursday night AA group. So with social distancing, masks, and a whole bunch of hand sanitizer in Lysol, we've been continuing our recovery ministries. We just opened our Christian coffee house back up at the beginning of June with taking temperatures when people come in. Everyone must have a mask and sanitizing, and not letting more than 10 people at a time. But for them, 8th Avenue Place Coffee and the coffee house has become such a part of their ritual, of their positive ritual for life, that we wanted to get that open as soon as possible. So we went down in March and we opened back up in June, and we've been doing it Monday and Fridays from 8:30 to 11:30 instead of Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. So that's been, but something, Chris, that's really blown me away is, you know, we have two things actually. One is there was a little bit of revitalization happening on 8th Avenue with restaurants, bars, and coffee shop. And when COVID hit, I had two community-based people say that they wanted to use 8th Avenue Place, have fiduciary responsibilities. They gave both of them a large sum of money, and we were actually able to pay. We put money towards some stipulations where you had to work in the service industry in the 15120 area code, which is the Still Valley. You had to work in the service industry. And two, we were able to get people money to pay for their rent, mortgage, or their car payments for 3 months at a time. So imagine like two just community people coming in and saying, we believe in what you do, and we want to help out the business district. So to see just average people just coming out of the woodwork to do that, we were able to bless some people in the service industry who may have missed payments otherwise. So that was an honor to be able to be a part of that, but also in terms of having meals for people. So at 8th Avenue Place for 12 years, 13 years, I believe, we've been offering a community meal on the first and third Saturday of each month. Well, in April and May, we were able to get food for 150 people for every Saturday in April and May. And in June, we went back to the first and third. And I tell you what, brother, the blessing of God has been on Saturdays. The only bad weather we had snow in April. So we've never been rained out. We've been gathering in the parking lot at Homestead Presbyterian Church, and we've been passing out meals. We've made new relationships with some, and it's just amazing how the kingdom of God, as you know this, Chris, is so deep on relationships and networking, that we were able to get funds to actually pay caterers who were concerned for their businesses going under and get them work during the pandemic. And we were able to provide meals for people, so everybody benefited from it. So we've just been, we had probably one of the most powerful Easter experiences for me. There was only like 5 people. And imagine, proclaiming to a mostly empty parking lot and 5 people with masks on, Jesus wins, that not even a pandemic could stop the resurrection. So we've been busy, brother. We've been good busy.
Yeah.
We've been good busy. So yeah, we've back to doing the meals. We're not inside yet. We're just still in the parking lots. And so I saw the weather for this weekend. Saturday is supposed to be another beautiful day, so we'll continue to have a meal, play some music, and preach the gospel, brother.
That's awesome. You've been, like you said, you've been doing this for like 13 years now. You started at 8th Avenue about a year before I got here, and we've been partnering for a long time. One of the things that we did early on in our partnership was you would come up here and preach at least once a month.
I'm still waiting for that invite.
Well, the invite's always there, but let me explain to people why they don't see you very much anymore, and that's because you've been assigned to multiple churches. So you're in a pulpit Whereas before you were preaching on Saturday night, so you had the ability to be here on a Sunday morning. Now you're not just in a pulpit, you're in multiple pulpits potentially on Sunday mornings. So give us a little bit of background of how that happened and where you're at and how you're ministering in that way beyond 8th Avenue.
Yeah. So, all right, Chris, I won't hold you accountable for me not being there now. Okay. So yeah, there was at one time I was blessed in stress to oversee 4 or 5 congregations, 2 in the Allegheny River Valley. That really began, Chris. Just so to let you know, and many of you know, ministry like 8th Avenue Place, the struggle we find is sustainability. You know, we don't have membership roles. We work with people in poverty. So through great friendships and partners in ministry like you and Christ Church and other places, the conference at times, we've gone through cycles of sustainability. So, you know, at the beginning, we had about a handful of local churches that considered us mission partners. Christ Church, of course, stepped in the biggest and has sustained that, thanks to you and to Gina Marr and the other people at Christ, Cindy Schneider and the other people at Christ Church, my parents who just believe in just countless people who bought into this as their own ministry. But we've found out that, you know, as we change and struggle, they have to pay bills. So we transitioned from being not dependent, but sustained by partnerships with local churches to the reality of having to serve multiple Methodist churches as a source of income, but also with the chance to raise up local people in leadership. And so the Still Valley, which is where you know, Still Valley's 3 boroughs, Munhall, Homestead, and West Homestead. Right now I am in the office and living in the parsonage and serving at a church called Ann Ashley United Methodist Church, which was the mother church of the Still Valley area for Methodism, where all Homestead Park, there was First Church in Homestead, another church, Hayes, which is no longer with us, came out of Ann Ashley United. Church restart in Swissvale 4 or 5 years ago, and changed the name to New Day Swissvale. We're there in 8th Avenue Place, and we also have leadership under John Devy at West Homestead United Methodist Church. So, you know, just the reality of the you're doing what you're doing and it's right, and we're doing what we're doing and it's right. But we just realized that is you just got to find your niche, right? Like, so you have 5 of our churches in this community, four churches, excuse me. What is yeah, brother, we've just been doing some work to try to find out what each congregation's niche is for the community and how that's part of a bigger picture for what God is doing in the Still Valley.
Thing that people understand. They've heard the term, but they don't necessarily understand what it's in. And we can't explain it all tonight in our half an hour together. But what's it mean for you to be able to serve in Homestead? And what would you like the members of Christ Church to understand about the work that's being done in Homestead? You've hit on it a little bit, you know, like you don't have a normal kind of church. You know, you're dealing with populations that they're not going to help your church be able to run financially. But what would you want the people from Christ Church to understand about the ministry that's happening at 8th Avenue, as well as some of those local churches that are in that urban area?
Yeah. So my concept of urban ministry has evolved. So, you know, when many of us think of urban life, we think of the stereotypes and the stigmas. And I'm watching this documentary on Flint in Flint, Michigan, on Netflix. I'm sorry, you need to pray for me. I've been hooked on Netflix, man. I'm watching a docu series like 3 a day, driving me crazy, but about the homicide. So we are tend to drawn to the negative in our urban areas, and I think a lot of that for some of us who come from non-urban areas is it keeps us from having to face ourselves and our problems, right? Yeah, look at what's going on in Homestead instead of what's looking at in Bethel. But what does it mean to go into an area that has had years of violence and drug trafficking and some negativity, but has also not only had but has strengths. Like there are people like I mentioned those two gentlemen who stepped up and wanted to pay for the rent and the car payments and mortgages of service workers. We've had the mayor of Homestead with us almost every Saturday, hanging out, helping meals. I so there's been this community focus that has really taken off since pandemic hit. Since the pandemic hit, it's been amazing, and really, even from the school district, really a shared understanding that we're in this thing together. Phone call today dealing with a mental health situation from a community member who wanted to run something by me. So we're sharing our lives together, our brokenness. That's what I love about urban life, is that it's raw. There's, you know, a lot of the masks that we've been trained to put on or just put on naturally. When you're broken, they don't have to be put on, and there's healing that comes from that. So, um, just I think our niche in terms of urban ministry is that living and working in a population that has a lot of people in the mental health system, as well as a lot of addiction. Um, to be able to offer resources and not just have to refer out. So I went back to school, became a licensed social worker. I'm going to be a licensed clinical social worker. And I think, the reality of church structures is the way our churches look now are a lot different than they looked 5 years ago. Imagine how much different they're going to look 5 years into the future. And I think, I honestly believe this, and quote me on it if I get it right. But if I didn't get it right, you said it. I think we're the last generation of full-time clergy in the West. I really do.
Yeah.
I think that I think as our institutions begin to reformulate and fall and break, that I think many of us who are in it now, when the generation is over, I've talked to many clergy who are going into coaching, who are going into
Hmm.
counseling as well, social working,
Hmm.
not only for a possibility of what happens if the church can't support us, but to be in an area like we're in. I'm not comfortable just as important as praying is, but I want to be able to help counsel people on a different level. I want to be able to network to get people into good rehabs if they need to get into good rehabs. And I think not only is our niche generally in alcohol and drugs, Christian recovery, but I'll tell you what, Chris, like I think what sets us apart is the fact that we are so the medical model is, I'm the professional, I'm the doctor. You come and schedule a time to come see me on my terms. You present what's wrong with you. I tell you what's wrong with you because I'm the trained one, right? And then I diagnose you and I see you in a month. Like if you had access to your counselor or therapist over a cup of coffee. What if now I know there's boundaries about coming to people's homes, but like a lot of the normal routines that we fall into, like normal office hours. Crisis doesn't follow our office hours. So to just be able to be open and have people trained, even with a minimal level of therapeutic care, that it's amazing, Chris. Like there's some people that all they need they're one phone call away from losing it or keeping it. One
Yep.
phone call, and all
Yep.
that phone call could take is 10 minutes of your time, and maybe a little bit of training to know what you're listening for. But I'm serious that I can't tell you the amount of times all someone needed was a phone call, and it brought them back to this place of sanity.
Sure.
So yeah, so that's a long-winded answer to your question, brother.
No, you're good. And you mentioned in that answer about the school district, and the school district you're
Yeah.
referring to is the Steel Valley School District, and you've been
Yes, sir.
involved in the Steel Valley School District for years.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the relationships that you've been able to build with the students and teachers and administration at the Steel Valley School District, and how that has been a benefit to doing ministry on the ground in Homestead.
Yeah, so we are blessed, and I don't know how unique we are, and if we are unique, then I think more school districts need to get on board, but they are very open to clergy or anyone in the community for that matter. Like Charlie Batch is active in the school. Wes Lyons, who was another Pittsburgh Steeler, runs a group for athletic men. There's a couple groups in there that work with high school and middle school girls. So Still Valley gets it that it takes a village to raise a child, and I got in under a program called Young Life. A gentleman named Ray Saunders, my father was in his Young Life class, and Ray would just shoot the breeze. After school, he'd have the gray van packed, and they'd play flag football, basketball. So I got in under him and never stopped. Asked if I could run leadership development groups, and just go. Just I honestly think, Chris, that I think that apart from our days off, that clergy should have one day of the week as a community day, where they should be immersed in some aspect of their community, and to have access, at least had access. I'm not sure with COVID, at least right now, but have the principal cell phone numbers. If there's a situation that happens in Homestead that I think the school needs to be aware of, um, I'll contact them. If there's a situation at school they think I can intervene in, yeah. So just on a first name basis with the superintendent, the principals, the teachers, the students, it's really been a powerful dynamic. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. It helps to be able to really do ministry.
yeah,
And the other thing that you're doing is you're helping the people in your community be able to become self-sufficient. I think that's
yeah,
part of what that grant that you spoke about, that the two business people came and
yeah,
offered you money for frontline service workers. Part of what makes that so important to be able for them to meet their mortgage and car payments and those kinds of things is that they can continue to stay on their feet and be stabilized. And I know part of what you're doing with 8th Avenue is helping people learn how to run a business or be in a business. So it's not just coming in and getting prayed for or getting a cup of coffee, but it's
yeah.
learning how to be able to function in the world. So you're taking ministry to a whole nother level. Tell us a little bit about some of the stuff you're doing in that vein.
Yes. So just really hit a place in ministry. Probably this was when Malia was born. I was not as wise as Pastor Chris when the doctor gave us the date 10, 11, 12 for Malia's birth. I thought that, cool, the doctor said it, so she'll be born on 10, 11, 12. So I went and scheduled a conference at the end of September in Minnesota, and it was on Christian community development. And I went under the advisement not to go by many people. But as much as I was, crying that I've left this 8-day-old baby, my parents were more than happy to take her with Monica. But this whole concept of, are you enabling people to continue in unhealthy patterns of living while creating a dependency on yourself? Like, we like to feel good, we like to be needed, but are people enabled by your ministry? Are they empowered for you to come alongside them and provide tools, or maybe they have the tools already for you to say you believe in them? So just really went through this this season of asking, is what we're doing enabling or empowering? So we started Valley Landscaping 8 years ago, and for the first 6 years, I ran it out of our garage, and even though I promised Monica I wouldn't put one more lawnmower, we still have oil caked onto the floor to this day. But two young men and I reclaimed an abandoned property on 15th and West, and I'll never forget a group of young men who I stereotyped as being drug dealers walked by because I knew them, and they were laughing at the two kids I had, and jokingly said to them, how much is Pastor Keith paying you? And these guys had pockets of money, but the sad reality is, out of those five, two are dead, three have been. So I mean, it's just realizing that the lordship of Christ means more than just our souls getting to heaven, but it means how we spend our money. It's decisions we make. So that landscape company just really, one of the highlights of my ministry was being able to hand some young men their first paychecks and seeing the look on their face. And I'm almost teary. I'm like, what's wrong with you, man? I'm just like, this is deep. Like this
Sure.
is this yes, this is life. This is meaningful. And so yeah, so doing that, and once I get the whatever certifications in place, you know, to be able to offer even deeper coaching and counseling and consultation to people. So we have his name is Michael J. Scott. He's our adult outreach supervisor. He's been in prison. He's lived homeless for 15 years, and he's very big on life principles and recovery. So we have him on board, working with a lot of people who are in our recovery groups, trying to just give them principles of how to live life, and it's sad, brother, because the people you see, people who we call the town drunk, you know, but when you know them by name and you know their story and you cried with them and you prayed with them and you fought for them to live, and many die, you just, it takes on a whole new level of seriousness. Like there has to be more, knowing that we can't make anybody want to change, but I think we need to be able to at least be the change that they need to see. Yeah, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's what I think that's part of the important piece, that when churches like ours have different things that we are dealing with here than what you're dealing with there. And when we go down and serve with you, part of the most important thing for us to do when we're there is to build relationships, not just go in and
And the old adage, when we come used to come back from mission experiences or mission trips to poor areas, and the kids would say, "So, little Johnny, what about your trip?" Well, I've just realized how blessed we are because we have so much more. So, it's not that dynamic. It's, hey, I met John from 8th Avenue today, and he just really spoke into my life. Like, the reality is, Matthew 25 is probably one of the most misinterpreted parables about the as you've done it to the least of these, my brethren, you've done it unto me. Jesus talks about the great judgment, and this messes with our theology a little bit, because how are you in the covenant community? It's not according to this parable in Matthew 25. It's not by the typical confess Jesus as Lord, repent of your sin. It's, have you clothed the naked? Have you fed the hungry? Have you visited those in prison? Have you healed those who were sick? And as you've done it to the least of these, you've done it to me. So what Jesus is saying, brother, is, so we misinterpret that, and we get all excited. We're gonna go help the poor. We're gonna go do this, and we're gonna go do prison ministry. We're gonna bring Jesus. When no, Jesus says, if you've done it to them, you've done it to me. In other words, Jesus is saying, I'm already present in the lives of, like, literally. So what, that should be a profound way for us to view life, that if I need to find out what Jesus is really up to, I need to go amongst the poor and broken, the addicted and the afflicted, and I just need to shut my mouth and listen, and I need to ask God to give me eyes that see, and quit trying to make God happen in their lives and maybe accept that God wants to do something in my life through them. Like that,
Yep.
that's a pretty that's mind blowing, brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's this one guy, I love him. He comes to service tanked every time we gather outside, and he says, "Stop, come here, Pastor Keith," and he lays his hand on me, and he's just praying all over me before I preach the message, and he's the only one the next week that'll say he'll say a line from the sermon from the week before, and I thought he was too drunk to even remember who I was, and here he is quoting sermons. So it's God is up to something sometimes, and those that we expect God is up to nothing in, and those are usually the ones we need to walk.
Yeah, and I think that's some really good advice for us to take with us. I mean, it's amazing where God is working, and we doing unbelievable stuff at 8th Avenue. Pastor Keith, if you want to get engaged, reach out to myself or Gina Mar. We great work. Keep up the great work, Keith, and we will continue to be partnering with you in